Hi, thanks so much for coming. My name's Steve Gravestock. I'm a senior programmer here at TIFF, and I'm very pleased to welcome you to the TIFF Bell Lightbox for the Canada's Top 10 screening of Chandler Levack's I Like Movies, which had its world premiere here at TIFF back in September. We'd like to thank our lead sponsor, Bell, and our major sponsors, RBC, Visa, and Bulgari, as well as our major supporters, the Government of Canada, the Government of Ontario, and the City of Toronto for their continued support. For more information, visit tiff.net. We'd like to thank Mongrel Media for providing us with the movie tonight as well. It's one of the great thrills of programming is discovering new filmmakers, and I couldn't say I was more excited about any other film than finding this one this year. It's a very serious film about a little-known disease called early onset cinephilia. I'm kidding. It's about a young guy who loves movies and filters his life through movies. It's about the drawbacks of that and sometimes the benefits. It's driven by some great writing. It's very heartwarming and also often very funny. It's got some amazing performances. A few highlights: Percy Hines-White, who plays the main character Lawrence's best friend, he's great in a somewhat thankless role. Rumina Dugo plays the video store. Oh, that's the other great thing about it. It's set in a video store. Not enough movies are set in video stores. Plays the video store manager. Krista Bridges plays Lawrence's long-suffering mother, and long-suffering, very generous mother. And Isaiah Lehtinen plays Lawrence, the title character, and it's a great performance. Really layered, really smart. When we first saw it, I was immediately taken with it, but being I'm a little removed from high school, so I asked my son what he thought of it. He watched it with us, and he told me he sort of sealed the deal by saying, "Dad, it was way more real than licorice pizza." And that finalized things. I think we invited the film the very next day. We're very lucky to have the two producers from the film, Evan Dubinsky and Lindsay Goldner, and the writer-director, Chandler Levack. Please join me in welcoming them.
Hello. All right, cool. Hi, everyone. Are you all excited to see I Like Movies? No. Are you excited to see I Like Movies? That was pretty good. Okay, I'm going to throw it over to the wonderful Lindsay Goldner and the wonderful Chandler Levack.
Thanks, Evan. Fabulous producer and also great hype man. To start off, of course, we'd love to thank our funders. This film is not possible without the support of Telefilm's Talent to Watch Talent Fund, Canada Council for the Arts, and Toronto Arts Council, as well as our Canadian distributor, Mongrel, who is helping us to theatrically release the film March 10th. Mark it on your calendars. We are going across Canada in theaters. We're very excited. Thank you, Mongrel. And of course, writer-director Chandler Levack.
I'm going full teenage boy with this giant ginger ale. I really want to say thank you. It's such an honor to be selected for Canada's Top 10 Film Festival, especially by Steve Gravestock and his final send-off. Steve has played such an important role in kind of the history of Canadian cinema for a very long time, and it means a lot. It's my first feature, a really personal film. So thank you, Steve, for everything that you've done for the film. TIFF, showing this film at TIFF really changed my life. I think especially a lot of the other actors and crew that were a part of it. So I think it's very much an honor to be a part of the Canadian film community, and thank you for everything, Steve. Thanks, Steve. We love you, Steve. And I'd also like to dedicate tonight's screening to Ravi Srinivasan, a TIFF programmer for Canadian cinema who recently passed away, who is a close friend of mine, and really, just such a warm, welcoming presence as kind of an emerging filmmaker. He programmed this film and my first short film, We Forgot to Break Up, as part of his Southwestern International Film Festival. And, just I think his, making a film is a feature, a micro-budget feature during a pandemic is so, difficult. And having Ravi's kind of excitement and support and encouragement to, to make me even think that I could apply to TIFF, and his kind of, warm, friendly interactions and support and talk about cinema that we've had over the years has meant a great deal to me. And I know for a lot of filmmakers, it's just such a devastating, unfathomable loss, unbelievably shocking. And I just really, I really wish I could have been at the Southwestern International Film Festival, and I had a concussion when the film screened. But I remember there was a letterbox comment after the film aired, and somebody wrote, "Is this movie about Ravi?" Which he was a much warm, generous person than the character in this film. But I think his love of cinephilia and his dedication to the community and what people like Ravi represent, and I feel like his loss just made me think about how all of us in the Canadian film community, we all mean so much to each other. And it's so important that we remember the connection and the weight that we have, and how every person that is a part of this community is so important and special. So, yeah, thank you so much. I'd also like, before the film begins, just to shout out a few crew members that worked on the film that are in the audience today. Todd Bolton, who was our art director. Mackenzie Hodge, who was a makeup assistant. Did a great job. Megan Tirado, who was an incredible costume designer, co-costume designer, costume assistant. Courtney Mitchell, who designed all the costumes for the film and is just unbelievably brilliant and talented, and made a cowboy hat look iconic.
Yes, Courtney.
And is a genius.
You did that.
And Steve Cutler, who did an incredible job doing our VFX. And there's a lot of VFX, you wouldn't think that, but there's 400 VFX shots in the movie because there's so many damn screens and video screens. And so I just want to say thanks to Steve, because it was an incredibly laborious job, and he was so committed to it, and he did a fantastic job. So thank you to everyone who's here, and I'm really excited to connect with you after the movie. Thanks.
Where was the video store? You worked at a video store in Burlington, right?
Yeah, shout out to the Blockbuster Video on Brant Street, where I spent, thank you.
The biggest Blockbuster in Burlington, I believe.
Yeah, not to brag.
Right there? Go ahead. The lady really liked the movie, and she wanted to know, and especially the fact that it was Canadian, which is good.
Whoa!
Eerie. But she wanted to know where you found Isaiah, who played Lawrence.
Yeah, well, we went on a very exhausting casting search to find Isaiah Lehtinen, who plays Lawrence. Worked with an amazing local casting director, Jesse Griffiths. About 300 actors across the country submitted self-tapes. Some really interesting actors kind of threw their hat into the ring. Gabriel LaBelle, who's the lead in The Fabelmans, submitted a self-tape to Lawrence. I was like, I don't really see it, but he's doing great now, probably much better. But yeah, Isaiah was one of the last actors to audition, and there's just something about him. It wasn't how I imagined the character, but it's much more interesting and specific and rich. And I just, we instantly connected right away, and I felt like he really understood the character and had kind of a life experience that matched the character a lot. And I remember showing my mom his audition tape, and she was like, "Don't cast him." And I was like, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "He's really talented. He's going to be a star. I know star power when I see it, but he's too much like what you were like in high school. It's going to scare people and make them feel really uncomfortable. So you should pick someone who's normal and nice." And I was like, I think he just got the part.
You shouldn't always listen to your parents, maybe. Next, yeah, right there.
Hey, Chandler, first, fantastic movie, but I want to know what it was like getting Tanner Z as the video store mod.
Sorry, what was that? Sorry?
What was it like getting Tanner Z
What was it like to get Tanner Z to play the video store hottie?
Yes, I mean, what a coup for us.
Good catch.
I just was really obsessed with that idea. I was like personally so excited about it. I love Tanner Zipchin. He's a Canadian icon. I just emailed him, and he was like, "I'm in right away," and it was amazing. I love Tanner. I'm ready for the Tanner Zonts. I think it's coming. So happy to kick it off with this film.
And we didn't pay him in scene points. That's probably why he said yes.
You played him in Blockbuster Rentals,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So,
Sequels discount.
yeah. Right there, yes.
A lot of Tanner Z questions tonight, I see.
Is it really that easy to get people to act in your movie, specifically Tanner Z?
I
have
think
no idea
Tanner
who Tanner Z is, so,
Yeah.
you know.
I think
But he's
Tanner-
good in the film. So.
Tanner knows quality when he sees it. So I think he saw this project, he saw the potential there, he saw what he could bring to it as an artist, and I think that's why he said yes. But Tanner doesn't say yes to anyone.
And he killed in the role.
He was great.
Fantastic.
Video store hottie.
Okay, so I'm only going to take the question if it's not related to Tanner Z. So, is it a Tanner Z question? Okay, go for it then.
I just want to say, first of all, that I really appreciated Florence in particular, just because it's so hard to be able to create, like, basically an asshole protagonist that we kind of see actually develop and grow to an extent. Like, we see, like, but at the same time being able to relate to them. And it's like, I know that's hard to do, so kudos to that. In terms of, like, what we saw with his experiences in high school, like, a lot of his, like, a lot of things he would like to do, like watching Saturday Night Live, or like a lot of the film choices that he would pick. Were any of them based on like your own personal taste, or were those strictly written for the character?
A lady really liked the way you developed and really, made Lawrence a sympathetic and interesting character, despite his excesses. But she wanted to know were the specific films he was interested in, was that based on yourself at that age, or
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
That's my cousin Veronica. So let's give it up for Veronica. What a great question. It's very personal. So everything that he's obsessed with was what I was obsessed with in high school. I loved Saturday Night Live. I loved watching it with my best friends. It was like I always stayed home to watch Saturday Night Live, especially at that era. That whole grade 11, grade 12, that whole experience was just me falling in love with Stanley Kubrick and Paul Thomas Anderson. Punch Drunk Love came out in I think grade 11 for me, and immediately it was like this movie that like my soul imprinted on. I got the soundtrack. I just wanted to like live in that movie. I don't know why. Everything was we couldn't get the rights to actually show any of the movies on screen because it would cost like $40,000 or something. So I had to recreate them. So I would write like a scene from Spartacus that wasn't actually like the dialogue from Spartacus, but kind of a Spartacus sound-alike. And then in ADR, I got amazing actors from Toronto to record the dialogue, and then we kind of rejigged it so it could kind of be a facsimile. And then I also had to write an original Hanukkah song from scratch that my composer, Murray Lightburn, who's amazing, kind of did the acoustic guitar background for. And then my brother, who does a pretty good Adam Sandler impression, voiced it. So there's a lot of creative workarounds. And I really do have to credit Evan because he worked so hard to like get all the clearances and licensing. And I think we got some amazing scores within kind of our micro budget. But yeah, it was very difficult. Like when I think about like, oh, how come no one's ever made like a coming of age movie set in a video store? Because you have to fill an entire video store worth of titles.
Evan, were you actually? I just want to I presented Punch Drunk Love at the Uptown.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was kind of it was something. Adam Sandler was there. He crawled across the stage to play obeisance to Paul Thomas Anderson. It was something.
Oh, it's beautiful.
But Evan, when you saw the list of like Evan and Lindsay, when you saw the list of films that were referenced, did you like how did that
It was.
How did your hairline function?
It
at
was.
that
It
point?
was. It was a lot. It was a lot to do. A lot of it is very sort of world buildy stuff, and I think that's sort of the like we were got a lot of wonderful posters and DVD boxes from Rhombus right here in Toronto, and they were very supportive of the film, and I think us as filmmakers and stuff, which was wonderful. And then other people like DreamWorks were like, I think you don't understand how this works. And I said, okay, thank you. But then that company went out of business, so I think we have the last laugh, you know?
Cool. There was some people back. Oh, way at the back, yes. Was there a lot of improvisation used in the film?
It's pretty strict to the script, which might be surprising because it's so like loose and kind of the dialogue is very naturalistic, I guess. But I think Isaiah did some amazing ad libs that were wonderful. Like when he's like in the job interview scene, he's like, "I know this might surprise you, given my resume," but he added so many flourishes kind of organically. And I think same with Romita. She's just such a gifted comic actor, and she used to be a dancer, so I think. She just has this incredible like way of communicating with her body. Like she's such a gifted physical comedian that I think she really like made so many scenes like more dynamic because of her background in dance.
There's that great quote by Elvis where he says, "It's not important to be spontaneous; it's important to sound spontaneous." Right? Yeah, right there. Somebody, yeah. If the film's autobiographical, can you talk about the decision to make the main character male?
Yeah, I mean it's very fictionalized as well because there's lots of elements that are fictionalized. But I did grow up in Burlington. I did work in a video store. I was kind of a dick in high school, but I think for me the decision to make Lawrence man was just because I feel like there's this real important gap in representation right now where like I think. Often female filmmakers feel like they can only tell female-driven stories, and why that's really important to see like interesting three-dimensional female characters on screen, and we need more of that. I also think that women should also be writing male characters and maybe seeing them at a different angle than they can see themselves. And I think I was kind of interested in this archetype of sort of like the budding film bro, and are film bros born or made, and is there a way to get them apart? When their psyche is the most damaged, like in high school when they're watching Stanley Kubrick movies in the dark and maybe secretly masturbating. Sorry, you're recording this? Oh my God.
We can cut stuff out.
Cut that out.
I hope.
I'm sorry. But I have empathy for those guys, and I think I've seen the best of how they can turn around, and I've seen the absolute worst of how they can be turned around. And is there a part you can do an early intervention when they're in high school so they can see women as people and stuff. So that was just a story that I felt like I hadn't seen before on screen. And also, if Lawrence was a girl, like the Lady Bird comparisons would never stop. So it was good. You can actually be more, I think, personal and truthful if you swap the gender, because then people are like, oh, this is a movie. It's not your direct life.
Good question. Yeah, back there, yes. If you could talk a bit about, Chandler, if you could talk a bit about moving to your first feature. You'd done a short and some music videos as well, but were there things you learned maybe for the young filmmakers in the audience or emerging filmmakers?
Yeah, I think it's the scope of it that was really intimidating to me because, a short or music video, like those are kind of 3-4 day shoots, and I would wrap them and I would be like so exhausted. But the idea of the endurance of like living with something for so long and the kind of prep of having to do like this 2000 era period piece on a micro budget, where it's the middle of a pandemic and you can't buy anything in a store. I feel like I'm really lucky to have worked with like very resourceful, like Courtney Mitchell, my costume designer, who did such an incredible job, and Megan Tirado as well. They went to like value villages and warehouses and rental hot places, and we borrowed, that's Percy's own Jenko jeans in the film. and then same with the production design aspect of it. Like our set is actually scavenged from an old Blockbuster that went out of business 10 years ago that I had found out was been sitting vacant in Owen Sound for like 10 years. So I got the property manager's number and convinced him to open it up. And we filled a cube truck with everything that was in the store. And Todd, who's here, he had to like, use like a saw to like saw out the rental returns box, from all this like rotting wood. So yeah, I think it was that, and then it's just like kind of the sort of scope of it, and also just kind of day after day when you're sort of fighting the fires of production and the intensity of shooting, like how do you kind of maintain that endurance and sort of focus on your vision, and how do you make sure that the experience overall is like a positive one, and when do you sort of pick your battles to really be like, I need this for the film. And then how much does that kind of burn people out? And then they're like, well, not everything's important. So I don't know. It's just like I think just holding the movie. But I think for me, the best part was the editing process, because I worked with a really brilliant editor, Simone Smith. And I think that's really what I learned the most, was just kind of how to like make and remake the movie every day until it like whittling it down to what it actually is and having the movie kind of tell you what it wants to be. So I think that was a really good experience.
Yeah, right there. Yeah. Thanks for the Ryerson film representation.
Toronto Metropolitan University.
Question was for Lindsay and Evan. Were there challenges that came up that you hadn't anticipated?
This is all you.
I think that's the definition of a producer, though.
Yeah. Definitely. Well, when I met Chandler, it was pre-pandemic, and she was looking for a producer to bring this project to life. It was like end of 2019. It was a CFC showcase. I had just graduated, and Chandler's, who also CFC alum, was looking for a producer for this project. So Talent to Watch, maybe some of you know, it's like the micro-budget, entry-level filmmaking fund in Canada. And it's amazing, but it's incredibly limiting. So for $125,000, you make your first feature, which is a challenge anytime, but stir in a pandemic, which no one knew how to really operate in. It was exceedingly difficult. But I think there were actually a lot of benefits to that time, because Chandler and I, and even Evan, like we would sit in my office, like watch tapes, and we had a really elongated casting process to find Lawrence, and we'd drive around like the suburbs of Toronto looking for locations, which the pandemic provided with an empty thrift store, which ended up becoming sequels. So there's like funny things about the pandemic that made the film feasible in ways that maybe it wouldn't have been without, but was it? Yeah, there's, a million difficulties in micro-budget filmmaking. COVID was certainly the worst one. Halfway through the shoot, I think it was around the time we were wrapping the first week, we got the notice that all stores were closing down. Only essential items would be purchased. So I went up to Courtney and I was like, buy everything you can to get us to the end of the shoot. And art department being like, we need, period era stuff. It was crazy. And actually what you were talking about with doing everything you can to make this movie, Facebook Marketplace, y'all. Facebook Marketplace was amazing. Those VHS rewinders were on there. We just hustled to do everything we could. And I remember talking to Chandler and being like, are we making this movie now? We decided, yes, let's go for it. And you put everything you have into it. You just have to hit go.
Yeah, it was a real trial by fire. But I think hopefully it can never be harder than it was.
It's easier.
One of the things about it being the height of the pandemic was the Cineplex theater was empty, the high schools were empty, the strip mall was empty. We actually had quite an easy time finding those locations. They were like, when do you want to shoot? We're like, I don't know, April. They're like, yeah, actually it's closed, so you can come in anytime you want. We're like, okay, thanks. It was that was very surreal, but there were other issues.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, thank you.
On behalf,
Are you
Go
a cinema,
Innis.
U of T Innis college student? Or graduate? Sweet. Yeah, us too.
It is.
U of T, yeah.
Speaking of that and the iconic hat, was that inspired by Peter Kapowski?
Was the iconic hat
Okay, well, here's
inspired
a
by
little
Peter
bit of
Kapowski?
deep trivia. Peter is actually the person sitting behind Lawrence that asked him to remove his hat. So I tip my hat to Peter,
Easter egg.
who I met at the first year U of T Cinema Studies. So he's a dear friend of mine.
Sinsu, right?
Nice catch. I think we can do maybe one more. Yeah, I'm afraid this will have to be the last one. Go ahead.
I was just wondering if you were working with such a small budget, why did you go to different cities in Toronto to film instead of just staying in Burlington?
Why, if you were working with a small budget, why did you just not stay in Burlington?
Can I help answer that one? Well, the video store isn't actually in Burlington. Unfortunately, it's in Ajax. And it just fit the bill for us. And a lot of it was sort of shot more centrally, I would say.
Yeah, we had to stay within ACTRA radius lines. Like if you shoot outside of
Save money.
Toronto, then you have to charge actors more. And also we just couldn't find everything. We did shoot all of our exteriors in Burlington. But then we would have to like kind of put people up overnight and stuff. So it was kind of more of like a complicated production thing. I feel like we shot in every single suburb in the greater Toronto area for this movie.
Yeah.
But, Burlington's like a real place, but it's also kind of a state of mind, and there's a lot of...
I would
stupidest
actually
thing I've
argue
ever
that it's a
said.
suburb of Hamilton rather than Toronto.
It's a state of mind that I live in permanently, especially because I lived with my dad during the pandemic in Burlington for most of it. But yeah, there's so many kind of bland, amorphous suburbs and around the GTA that kind of look similar. So
Vaughan. We went to Vaughan.
yeah, Ajax, North Toronto,
Mississauga.
Scarborough, Mississauga,
The
We went
Mr.
everywhere.
Sub, where was that?
Woodbridge.
Mississauga.
Yeah, there's a universality to the small town, and we found it in a few places.
Yeah, I think, and I just wanted to really write this like kind of cinematic love letter to this sort of place that I grew up that I'd never seen on screen. And I feel like sometimes Canadian stories, either we have to masquerade ourselves as a place in the States, like that movie Mean Dreams, where it's like, I don't even know where that takes place. Or, but Quebecois cinema is so like regional and specific. And I think when something's as specific as possible, you fall in love with it and you relate to it even more. It becomes more universal. So I really wanted to give Burlington its like, big screen debut.
Well, and speaking for all current Burlingtonians and past Burlingtonians, thank you. And thank you guys for coming, and congrats on the film.
Thank you to see you.
Thank you.
I'm sad that
March 10th. Tell your friends.
Tell your friends.
Thank you to TIFF. Thanks for being here.
Thanks, everyone.